Happy New Year to you out there. Hello and welcome to Public Conscience. You are onto the anti-corruption radio program produced by the Progressive Impact Organization for Community Development, PRIMOG. PRIMOG is a civil society organization working to promote good governance, participation, and accountability in Nigeria. I am Chidozie Ogbonnaya, and I'm with my colleague, Esther Basu.
A warm welcome to the program wherever you're listening to us.
On Public Conscience, we seek to evolve a corruption-free society through the amplification of investigative corruption stories by our partner media organizations and by alerting citizens and the government to their democratic actions against it. We equally promote integrity by amplifying rare cases of the display of honesty by public and private individuals in the course of their normal activities. We appreciate the MacArthur Foundation for supporting the production of this program.
In today's program, our focus is on the investigations exposing how hidden fees demanded in government-owned primary and junior secondary schools hinder access to education for many children and consequently worsening the literacy crisis in Federal Capital Territory, that's the FCT, despite the Universal Basic Education program in place.
According to the report, which was published by the International Center for Investigative Reporting, ICIR, the number of out-of-school children is on a rapid increase by the day because several government-owned schools across the communities in the FCT demand certain levies and fees from students. The findings by ICIR shows that enrolling a child into most government-owned primary schools costs between 10,000 naira and 20,000 naira, while junior secondary schools cost higher. Sadly, many children whose parents and guardians are not able to afford these fees risk dropping out of school.
The Universal Basic Education program in Nigeria was launched in 1999 to wipe out illiteracy, poverty, and ignorance. And according to the Universal Basic Education Commission, UBEC, Act of 2004, basic education should be compulsory and free, and every child in Nigeria has a right to basic education, which includes primary education and 3 years of junior secondary school. The aim of wiping out illiteracy in the country is in jeopardy. So many poor Nigerians cannot take their children to the public schools because of extra fees imposed on students.
Quite a pitiable situation. The situation is very disturbing, I must say, and today's program seeks to draw the attention of the government to the impact of arbitrary fees demanded in some government-owned schools in the FCT and how it is worsening the number of out-of-school children in the nation's capital. And in all of this, the big question will be, is the government really aware of the hidden fees and the levies in the public schools? What is the government doing to tackle issues of extortion and other forms of fraudulent activities heard every now and then at public schools? And for you listening to us out there, have you been paying hidden fees at government-owned schools, government-owned primary and junior secondary schools? We would like you to share your experience with us when we open the phone lines.
Okay, this is my cue to tell them to be ready to join us through phone and text messages during this conversation. The WhatsApp phone line to send your message is 0902-265-6167. That is 0902-265-6167. Please indicate your name and your location when sending your message.
Please begin to send your messages as soon as possible to 09022656167, and that is 09022656167. We will give out the numbers to call shortly.
If you just joined us, we are looking at a report by the International Center for Investigative Reporting, ICIR, on how hidden fees demanded by some government-owned schools in the FCT hinder access to education for many children and worsen the current literacy crisis in the country.
Like we said earlier, basic education should be compulsory and free for every child in Nigeria. Recall that last year, The United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization (UNESCO) said Nigeria has about 20 million out-of-school children. Also, the National Bureau of Statistics (NBS) recently revealed that 133 million Nigerians are suffering from multidimensional poverty. It implies that not every Nigerian can afford basic education for their children. Hence, the government made provisions for free education. Therefore, any act that will hinder poor Nigerians from accessing free education at public schools must be resisted by all.
And joining us to tell us more about this investigation is a journalist with the International Center for Investigative Reporting, ICIR. We have Ijeoma Okpara joining us, and we would be expecting the acting executive chairman of the Universal Basic Education Board to join us in the course of the conversation. Ijeoma, you're welcome as we wait for the acting director.
Ijeoma, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
We actually invited the FCT UBEB to be part of this program. We are hoping that they will be here pretty shortly. But let's start from you. Let's get it started from you. You visited some primary and secondary schools in the course of your investigation. Give us a sense of what your findings are with regards to the hidden fees in the public schools in FCT.
Well, thank you very much. In the course of writing the report, I found out that lots of schools demand certain fees upon enrollment. So when a new child is being enrolled into a school, there are certain fees demanded which range between 10,000 to 20,000 and sometimes higher. Yeah, so some of these fees are for certain, there are certain tags. They are tagged for, the fees are for certain purposes, including uniforms, books, tests, exams, and things like that. So to enroll a child into a secondary school, a junior secondary school or a primary school in the FCT, government-owned primary school or junior secondary school, is actually not exactly as free as we think that it is.
Like how what's the cost implications of enrolling into
in primary schools you find that you might be expected to pay within 10,000 to 20,000, 25,000 in some schools, depending on the schools and what is demanded. So some schools will request something like maybe as low as 10,000, but you'll be expected to source textbooks and of course exercise books from the open market. But then there are some schools who demand higher fees, and the higher the fees, the more it covers requirements for education. So you might see in schools where they demand 20,000 or 25, you find out that they are providing textbooks for you and all of that. But in one school particularly, in Kuje, I found that the demanded 10,000 naira, but you were expected to go outside to buy textbooks, exercise books, and all of that.
Like, how many schools did you visit?
I visited quite a number of schools, but in the report, about 7 schools were captured.
Okay, please.
7 schools.
Yes.
So, give us a sense of. We can get to know these schools. You mentioned them in your report.
Oh yes. So I visited there was a first UBE primary school at Pasali in Kuje. There was the junior secondary school in Citygate, Durumi 1. There was the junior secondary school at Durumi 2. I visited the junior secondary schools in Life Camp and in Jabi rather. And then, there were primary schools also in Durumi 2 that I visited.
Okay.
Okay,
go ahead.
All right, because you mentioned that they pay as high as 20,000 and 10,000.
In some schools, yes.
In some schools, we could see that presently in Nigeria, so many things that could be contributing factor. I want to know how these fees are increasing the number of out-of-school children.
So the economic situation of the country presently is really no secret. We know that more than a huge percentage of the population is presently living in extreme poverty. So when people have to struggle between feeding and going to school, you and I know what their decision can be. So we have many families focusing more on how to get by, how to survive their day-to-day life, how to feed. And you agree with me that while some people might consider 10,000 to be a quite an affordable fee, you know that there are families in Nigeria, most families in Nigeria have more than one children. And so when a family has, when parents have to, consider paying 10 to 20,000 for as many kids as they have, and look at the possibilities of, okay, we're paying this fees, how do we feed? Parents will be more concerned with feeding. So yes, it's making parents have to choose between two basic rights, and survival is key.
Survival is the first instinct, and I agree with you. I know we are prolific, and our population, we have a lot of people. But that said, why the disparity? Why are we having to, some people pay a certain fee in some schools and certain fee in some other? Does it mean schools that are very close to the city centers get to charge the students more?
No, absolutely not. I don't think it's a virtue. I don't think it's a function of being close to the city center, because even there are schools outside of the city center where, like I said earlier, it depends on what is being paid for. So a school can decide that, okay, we are providing these services and this is what you get to pay for. I can't say what their reasons might be, but going by what I discovered in the course of doing the report, it depends on what the school has to offer.
Just to put a face to what Ijoma is saying, I understand that the schools she visited LEA Primary School, Karamajiji. She visited LEA Primary School, Durumi. LEA Primary School, Durumi 2. First UBA Primary School, Pasali, Kuje. JSS, Durumi. And JSS Life Camp. This is where these investigations took place. That's how you wanted to.
That would be JSS Jabi.
Jabi.
Okay, and JSS Jabi.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, life camp. Right.
Yeah,
Okay,
yes.
so let's move further. Let's progress. You conducted this investigation within the FCT. Do you think similar occurrence happens maybe anywhere aside the FCT, maybe in other states?
Well, it would be wrong of me to assume what happens in other states, considering the fact that the report was based in the FCT and my findings were in schools within the FCT. While I can say that as far as these schools are concerned, these fees are being demanded of students in these schools, I cannot exactly tell what happens beyond the schools.
But there's propensity, that there's possibility of a replica of what you saw here beyond the FCT. I mean, we have over 70 government-owned schools, primary and secondary schools in the FCT, and you did only 6. Yeah, we can
7.
only. You did only 7. We can only imagine what happens where your leg couldn't get to. But let's go on. You spoke to the headmasters. I don't know if you spoke to them, and principal of the schools you visited. What was their rationale behind the hidden fees?
So some heads of schools were reached out to, and most of them refused to speak to me, of course, for lack of authorization. Those who were willing to even grant me audience were referring me to the FCT UBEB, Universal Basic Education Board, which I reached out to in the course of the report to understand. So I noticed that the rationale behind demanding fees from prospective students or students who are already in enrolled into schools is it's very difficult to say, because there's a blame game going on between the school authorities and officials at the FCT UBEB. You find out that while heads of schools are referring you to the FCT UBEB, the FCT UBEB is telling you, oh no, these fees are illegal, they are not expected to be demanded, and parents should report where such fees are demanded. So as far as the report is concerned, I noticed that there was just a shift of blame from one party to the other.
Okay, if there is shift of blame from one party to the other, did you find out what the actual responsibility of the government under the UBE policy is?
The UBEC Act provides that education is compulsory and free. So as far as that goes, every child in Nigeria is entitled to compulsory free education. So whatever the responsibility of acquiring, or whatever the cost of acquiring an education is, as far as the Act is concerned, the government should bear the burden, the financial burden.
You mentioned that the students, they have to pay for books, they have to go buy their books, buy different things. And there's a saying that goes this way: there's no free food even in Freetown. How can we say that the UB, through and through, takes care of every form of expenditure that is supposed to come from a beneficiary of the Universal Basic Education?
Well, like I said, basic education is regulated by the Universal Basic Education Act. And if the Act has already said, this education is expected to be, every child should go to school and it should be free, that automatically means that the responsibility is on the government. So if they now bear that responsibility, is not a question for ordinary citizens to answer. Does the government bear the responsibility as provided by the Constitution? The Constitution already provides that, or rather, the Act already provides that this is the responsibility of the government. And I think that is they are actually supposed to take absolute responsibility for whatever comes from basic education in Nigeria.
Now, the best answer from this question should have come from the UBEB FCT UBEB person that we're expecting. We're expecting the acting chairman to join us, and when he comes, we'll have to direct these questions to him. But let's go on. I know that you interacted with some parents whose children are no more in the school. They are out of school because of the cost. Give us a sense of your interaction with them.
Well, so while some parents were, I'm not ignorant of the fact that that some parents do not take education as seriously as it should be taken. But in the course of writing this report, I realized that there are parents who actually wanted their children, or would have liked their children to be in school. Unfortunately, it's not free. It's not free as is expected to be. So you see parents tell you, there are schools close by. It's not like schools are not provided. Schools are provided, but I cannot afford it. I can't send one and leave the other. And in some cases, you see parents send one child and leave the other. Let your brother go to school, later you continue. Let your sister go to school, you continue later. So, like I said, it's just a case of survival. They are more concerned with how to get by the day than any other extra things that is attached.
Do you see cultural factor playing out in contributing to the increased number of out-of-school children we have?
Oh, well, absolutely. There's still the case of, people wondering if girls should go to school, and I believe that might be responsible for why we have more girls out of school than boys. But as far as the report is concerned, what I was focused on was how the contribution of the fees, and that was what was reflected.
Let me get back to the fees, because now we are still around that issue. What specifically do the charges, these charges, what are they for? What do they use it for?
So usually when you take a child to a school, from what I observed, you meet whoever is responsible, and then you're given a long list, and that list could cover registration, it could cover and in some schools you find out that there's registration and then there's online registration, and so you don't know what the difference between registration and online registration is. You find fees for sportswear, you have fees for exam fees, you have exam fees included in some schools, you have, like I said, textbooks in some schools, and after paying maybe the sum of 10,000-20,000 for those those things listed already by the school, you're still expected to come to school maybe with a bucket, a broom, hypo, or one of those extra things that are not even captured in the list. There was a school in Kuje where there were 4,000 naira was meant for implements. 4,000 naira was meant for implements, and then I got to know later that implements would include a whole cutlass and stuff like that. So
if they say, maybe I don't understand the meaning of the word free. If they say education is free, then what is now the definition of free education?
and I believe that's a question that I'm not in a position to answer, because if we all understood this issue, I don't think we would be here having this conversation, right?
Absolutely. How free is the free education is a big question that we need the UBEP to answer. But for the interaction you had with the principal, I know they didn't disclose much, but on whose authority are they operating, fixing the fees? On whose authority?
Again, like I said, heads of schools were quick to refer me to the FCT UBEP. Reach out to the UBEP if you have any questions. Reach out to the UBEP if you would like to know, because they are employees of the state or the FCT, as the case is now. So I was referred to the UBEP, and the UBEP insisted that these fees are illegal. I spoke with the Mr. Hassan Suli, the chairman of the FCT UBEP, who told me that these fees are illegal, and he even went as far as saying parents should report these incidents to the FCT UBEP and let action. So the heads of schools were clear on the fact that they were not authorized to speak on any of such questions that I had for them, and that's where we are now.
Do you think that they know about this? They know about the hidden fees?
The UBEP?
The UBEP.
Well, going by what I found, going by what I reported, they claimed they are illegal. But if these things are happening in the school and the UBEP is not aware, I think that's a problem of a monitoring problem, because teachers and heads of schools are employees of the government, and if something like this can be going on and the government is not aware, I think that there's even a bigger problem than we.
What is the role of the PTA, the Parents Teachers Association, that we have in these schools? Because we understand that some of these fees are collected under the cover of PTA approvals.
Well, PTA levies, as far as I can tell, and based on this report, were a small part of the fees demanded. You find out that PTA levies range between 1,500 to 5,000. I didn't even come across a school collecting up to 5,000 for PTA levies. So if a school is paying 20,000, for instance, and PTA levy is just 2,000, I don't know if you can still say.
And we cannot. You are saying that we cannot really say that PTA levy will be what will drive the number of out-of-school children is so small for you?
I would like to doubt that. However, that's not also to ignore the fact that basic education is actually supposed to be free. And as far as PTA goes, you asked what the role of the PTA may be. I think it's just a parent-teacher association. It's just an association where parents and teachers meet to get. It's just a means where the development of the children in the school can be accessed by both parents and teachers on a common ground. I even believe that PTA levies should be optional. I don't think that the Parent-Teacher Association should be the levy shouldn't be compulsory. Yes. So if parents, for instance, decide they want to buy a bus for the school, I think that's optional. So that should be a choice thing and not a compulsory fee.
Okay, yeah. So in the course of your investigations, I mean, you had your doubts about the free education. That's why you embarked on the investigation. Do you think, or have you seen anyone being sanctioned as regards to the irregularities in the free education?
As much as the chairman, the UBEP official you spoke to, told you that this is illegal, and I know you research a lot from his interaction with him and what you know, has there been any sanction on,
based on what I know?
Based on what
I know. No. As far as the report was concerned, no parent has said anything. No parent said anything like, and that brings me to the problem of. So you say, has anyone been sanctioned? I think that sanction will happen where, these people know that these fees are actually wrong. It's very easy to expect that everyone knows that education is free, but does everyone really know that education is free? We have these government schools are supposed to be free because average Nigerians are, when you talk about average Nigerians, we're talking about people who don't even have access to certain information that some of us do. So I think the problem really lies in the fact that I'm not sure how many parents are aware that they are not expected to pay for anything at all.
Knowledge is key here, but we'll continue this conversation because as much as you know, we asked you out there to also get ready to join us with your opinion, with your experience out there. We want to harvest them. But before then, Esther, we'll listen to the Vox Pop, because the Primark team hit the streets also, to streets of Abuja, to sample opinions of Nigerians on how corruption is affecting Nigeria's education sector.
Okay.
So let's take a listen to that clip.
Voices against corruption. Let the people speak.
Hello and welcome to Primark's public feedback series on corruption, called Voices Against Corruption. And we ask, do you think corruption is responsible for the poor educational system in Nigeria?
Corruption is the major cause of the poor educational system we have in this country. Our leaders, they use our education to toy, to settle political scores. If you look at our budget, you see that the money I mark for education is very, very small.
The educational system wouldn't have been so bad if there wasn't corruption. The schools ought to have been developed more than the way they are. The system itself is the problem. The system the Nigerian government operates is bad. Because when system is porous, there's bound to be corruption. But if systems are put in place in such a way that things are checkmated, then the corruption will be minimized.
Corruption is responsible for the poor facilities in my school because, for example, we don't have a basketball court. Even our our science lab is not even functioning. Our class, the roof is leaking and there's not even chairs again. And then, like, let us say we are very populated in the class because of there's no chairs and the building itself. In fact, our school environment is not conducive.
Corruption plays a major role in the sense that if particular fund is being allocated for education and then those people that are at the helms of affair, they squander the money, of course you cannot see the result.
Corruption is responsible for poor educational system in Nigeria. Poor management of funds, and most people who are in charge of making sure the educational system is what it's supposed to be probably don't know what to do because them themselves are not well educated. So most times, whenever they are in a position to make the right decisions, they end up making totally wrong decisions.
Poor education is the cause of corruption. Right from nursery section, you see parents settling teachers to make sure that their children passes well.
Poor educational system, if you go to, for example now, corruption is part of it. If every education is good in this country, we're not going to be and say, okay, people want to travel out of this country, you study here in this country. That's number one. Number two, go to all these our schools. You see that their ceiling is bad, ceiling is faulty. Sorry, the blackboard is faulty, the floor, students sit on the floor. The desks, there's no window. Teachers, for them to come to teach the student, to take them like almost maybe throughout like 2-3 hours before teachers will come. This is all part of the corruption system we are talking of.
Corruption is responsible for all these infacilities in our school. Like in my class, the ceiling is leaking, it's not even good, no fan, 4 people in a seat. But what is going on now in this country? Corruption is responsible for all these things, and corruption is everywhere. We need God to help us in this Nigeria.
Primark's public feedback on corruption in Nigeria is produced with support from MacArthur Foundation.
Okay, that was a Vox Pop on the impact of corruption on our education system, the voices from the street. And still with us here is Ijoma Opera from the ICIR, the International Center for Investigative Reporting. And also joining us at this point in time is a representative of the chairman of UBEB, that is the Universal Basic Education Board, FCT. Bashir Abubakar, he's a director at FCT UBEB. Many thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll quickly open the phone line, but before we do that, we'll have you let you have your first take on so many things we've been talking. I know you are abreast with the discussion.
I mean, you've seen the report.
You've seen the report?
No, I have not seen the report.
Okay, since you've not seen the report, let's give you a little, bring you up to speed. It's a report about hidden fees in schools, government-owned schools in FCT, that students are meant to pay. They are charging students, and that's because of that, many are dropping out of school, which is not the aim of UBEB. You know, UBEB is trying to make sure that everybody gets literate and curb ignorance in the system. But when we have a system that is pulling people out of school, it is not something to welcome. And an investigation by the ICIR, the International Center for Investigative Reporting, they mentioned 6 schools that they went to and found out that a lot of things are not right. So we will have to let you respond. Let me ask you this question. If UBEB, so the status of fee, we want to know the status of fees secondary schools under UBEB are supposed to collect.
Actually, as we all know, universal basic education is free and compulsory. That is number one. The issue of charges, maybe they are talking about the PTA charges. We have a slogan in UBEC, Universal Basic Education Commission. Education for all is a responsibility of all. Sometimes we said it is free, but it's not free 100%. Why? Because a parent is expected to provide a uniform to the child.
So,
do you get it? So the parent will now sit down and decide and say, based on what we look at, we want to come in and support the government so that in the process of running the program of our schools, we chip into, as I said, we have a slogan, education for all is a responsibility of all. We equally have some NGOs that normally come to say, please, we are here to support the government.
Does that
in
mean
this
that
area or that area?
If I get you right,
yes,
the Universal Basic Education Program does not cover through and through.
It's not entirely free.
It's not entirely free.
It's not entirely free because it doesn't cover uniform. Government does not provide uniform.
So what does it cover?
What other things?
You see, the infrastructure, the classrooms and all other things you need in the school. The teachers, government employed teachers. We provide books. We provide so many other materials for the school. But it's part of collaboration. There is no way you said 100% the government should take care of everything. So that's why I told you the issue of uniform. Do you get it? Parents normally provide the uniform for the child.
Let me refer you, because of what the report is saying.
Okay.
The report is saying even some of the items you mentioned, like books, in some schools the investigation was conducted, they are paying for books. So there's actually something is wrong, something is missing, in the sense that what you are providing in some schools, people are still paying for it.
No, you see, even the issue of uniform I have mentioned, it is not compulsory that the child must buy a uniform from the school. The parent can collect a sample of the uniform. You can decide to go to the market, buy the material, and sew for your child. The only issue here is this. You see, when there is an allegation, if the report comes to us, we look at it, we set up committee to go around the schools where you are accusing of doing something wrong. If we verify, we sanction them.
Malam Abubakar, what is not clear now is what FCT, what they cover, what UBEC cover in schools. What if it is clear, clearly that you take care of the school uniform, the teachers, the infrastructure, and we know the ones that are not covered. We know that these are the ones left for the students and their parents to take care of. But if it is not clear like that, that means any price can be fixed for anything.
No. As I said, anything that has to do with the charges has to do with the PTA, not the government.
Not the government.
Yes. So it is the decision of the parent to say, this is what we want to do for the school. For instance, I was a principal for some years. When I was heading a school, if I have any challenge in the school, I will invite the PTA. I say, please, these are some of my challenges. For instance, when the issue of security comes up, I invited the PTA executive. We sat down. I said, what do we do? They said, principal, what we can do for you is we are going to build a security post for the school. This is a support. Do you get it? They build a security, and we are going to provide you with some money to go and buy scanners, so that anybody coming into the school, we have to scrutinize to make sure that it's not carrying anything dangerous to the school community.
Okay, that's noble of you, but
These are some
I
of
will
the
hold you up for a moment to bring in Ijeoma Opara. She has been with us from the beginning of the program, and she actually conducted this investigation. Ijeoma, I'm right about that?
Yes, you are.
Okay, please, what intervention do you have to make on this? Does what Malam Abubakar is saying resonate with your findings?
So I'll beg to differ on some issues. While he said that books are provided by the government for students, I know that there are some schools where students were expected to pay for books. You're expected to pay for compulsory books like mathematics. You need to pay for mathematics, English. I think mathematics, especially quantitative and verbal, for some primary schools. So, and in cases where the schools did not expect you to pay, you were expected to source for books in the open market. So if you say parents had to pay for uniforms or for PTA levy, for instance, like I said, the PTA levy is usually a small part of these fees demanded. You find out that PTA levies are around 1,500 and less than 5,000 in most of the schools I visited. So if you say parents can pay for PTA, and I think I'm happy he said this is a form of support. It's not a compulsory levy. It's not. So if you say that, okay, you are expected to pay, the parents and teachers have agreed that you pay 1,500 or 2,500 naira for PTA levy. What of those other fees like exam fees? What about fees like books? Fees for books? What do we say about fees like registration fees? And sir, I was saying before you came in that there are online registration. There are some schools that demand fees for online registration and registration. What is the difference? We see cases where some schools are expecting you to come to school with baskets, hypo, ho, stuff like that. Are these also the prerogative of the parents? Are these part of the fees that should be catered to by the government or the parents? That's where I think there's a confusion.
Okay, just as I have said, it is not the parent and the teachers that will sit down and agree. There has to be even an approval for you to support the government in the area of the education of our children. Normally, if the parent and the school administrations sit down and agree that these are some of our challenges, and we want the government to allow us, based on our agreement, to collect, it has to pass through the authority, and the authority will look at it to bet, and then now agree and say, oh yeah, you can go ahead and collect.
We seem to be having a clear case of illegalities going on in some places. And maybe you are not there for now because you don't work in a school. But from what the investigation is saying, some fees may have be given to students to pay without UBEB, FCT UBEB being aware. My question is this: in the case of illegalities or the illegal fees slammed on the students and their parents, do we have sanctions?
Yes, we have. You see, I work in the field. For instance, let me give you an example. Anytime we are resuming to schools, schools are resuming, we have monitoring team from different departments. We have Department of Quality Assurance. At the management level, the management also go for monitoring as soon as we resume to make sure that our school take up in good shape, and if there is any challenge, we quickly report back and take necessary action. So as for the illegality you are talking about, you see, you cannot say 100% everybody is right. That is why there are rules and regulations to monitor and control. If there is any case of illegal collection, our expectation from the side of the government is to get a report from anybody. That is why there is a collaboration, and I said education for all is a responsibility.
When we return, you will tell me, we'll find out if there are, punitive measures, if your punitive measures have really bring somebody to book, like sanctions. We would like to hear that. The public want to know that. And remember that this program is interactive. The WhatsApp phone line to send your messages 09022656167, and that is 09022656167. This number is for messages only. Please begin to send your messages now to 09022656167. We will open up the phone lines now and have you join us, and also tell us your opinion about what we've been talking about. Do you know that under the universal basic education, every child in Nigeria is entitled to free education from primary to junior secondary 3? And also, have you been paying fees and levies for your children or what in government-owned schools? Do you get receipts for the payments you make? Feel free to share your thoughts with us. Hello? Your name and where you're calling from?
My name is Magnus. I'm calling from Sapo.
Okay, let's hear you, Magnus, in 1 minute.
Okay, yes, my question is this. I attached to the resource line in the studio there.
Go ahead, we can hear you.
I'm only informed today that education is free. I'm not aware of that. You know, even if you get took my son to the school, I was asked to pay 20,000 naira for registration. They did it with perspective and they need so many things there. So, if education is free, why money for registration? That's my question.
He will answer you, I'm sure about that.
Okay, we have.
Thank you.
All right, thank you
very much.
Esther, the message you
The
have.
GSS Goza is charging up to 40,000 naira for new students entering junior secondary schools and up to 15,000 naira for regular term for old students. This is so sad. These schools are government schools which are supposed to be free.
Please go ahead.
Yes, the issue is, you see, if you are forced to pay any illegal money, the expectation is for you to insist of collecting the receipt. You now come forward and say, this is what happened to me. Then we take it off as
how can somebody report to FCT? What's the channel?
The channel is, if you can go to the FCT Universal Basic Education Board, you can either go to the Department of Junior Secondary Schools, or go to the Department of Primary School Services, or go directly to the office of the acting chairman.
Have you received any complaint, any reports of?
Yes, we have. We have. For instance, let me give you an example. The issue of textbooks. Some publishers sometimes back reported to us, and we sent for the principals of the schools they accused of selling pirated textbooks. The principal came to the board.
Okay.
Let's take this.
Just
Hello.
a minute. Let's take this call. Hello, your name and where you're calling from?
Yeah, please, I'm calling from Chua. I have my 2 kids in Chua Government Secondary School, and I'm in primary school there. And I used to pay every time.
How much did you pay when you registered them initially?
When I registered them, I can't remember again, but when I registered one in secondary school, I spent more than 20,000, close to 30,000 naira. When they finished common entrance, I have 2. And that they are blue and grey color. I have 3 child there. I registered with more than 20,000 naira.
And
30,000 I put everything together.
And they are still in school, right?
They are still in school.
This term, how much did you pay?
Last time I paid 3,900.
Okay. All right.
There was no risk. In fact, me, if this my number, I can provide every evidence. I say it to that particular government system.
Okay.
Which one?
Okay. Which one is yours?
The one that is after Seriki Junction. That primary school there. After the primary school, the junior secondary school.
Okay. You know what you do for us? You know what you do for us? Send us a message on this phone line. We'll pick it up.
I will send. Okay, I will send.
We'll pick it up. Okay. Let's have Malam Abubakar respond to what you are going to do about the arbitrary fees. People are saying that when they register their words, they spend up to 10,000, 20,000. This one say 40,000. Let's have your response on it.
You see, one of the major problems we have, some parents do not attend the PTA meeting to know how some of the decisions are taken. That is one. 2, as I said earlier on, don't pay any money without collecting the receipt. Insist. That will be your evidence. nobody will deny you to claim that this is what I have paid. I will take you back to when I served as a principal. There was an NGO that came to us that they want to pay the school charges which PTA agreed on for some of the indigent. I called the BP admin. I said, please go and find out. She was able to get some names. This lady paid. She was given the receipt. But she went and printed another receipt claiming that this is the amount of money she paid.
Okay.
I was called to the headquarters then to come and explain. But behold, my evidence exonerated me.
Your point, quite taken, that people should get their receipt. But what will you do about, because whether we like it or not, the investigation is saying it. People who call on the phone, they are saying it, that they are paying arbitrary fees. What will you do about these illegalities going on? As someone representing the chairman, what are we to expect from UBEB?
Number one, I can drop the number of our chairman. I can drop my number. If there is anything, you put a call, you come with the evidence. We take action.
So you are assuring us that you fight this illegality?
We do fight even. I am giving you some examples of some instances.
What will you do about it? Because you cannot say there are no bad eggs in your system. What is UBEB doing to flush out bad eggs in the system?
That's why I told you we sanction those people we found wanting. If anybody is found wanting, we sanction the person.
All right, we are ready to give the UBEC more time, more airtime to do sensitization on this program. We want to ask you and get your response if you like to come back, so that you have more time to explain to Nigerians on what they should know and what they with what they don't know.
I will be very happy to be here to explain certain things.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Ijoma, we are totally out of time. So
and you see in the letter, it says they attached the report. The report is not there. I went to the website myself too. I couldn't see anything.
I'll make sure you see this report so that we have another conversation around it. Ijoma, your last word in 30 seconds. We are totally out of time.
Okay, so yeah, I would like to say that transparency should be taken very seriously. We need the parents to be aware, more aware now than they already have been made today, that these fees are wrong, and these are the appropriate authorities to report to.
Okay. Thank you so much. And I must say that the report that we amplified today was supported by the Rise Up and the Malala Fund through the Youth Hub Africa Basic Education Media Fellowship, but published by the International Center for Investigative Reporting. Esther, we have to go.
Please visit our news website, primognews.org. That is primognews.org. For all the details of our reports and interviews, visit our website, www.primog.org, to get all the information about Primog. Also watch our videos on Primog TV, our YouTube channel. Please subscribe to get reminders when we have a new post.
We appreciate our guests, journalists with the International Center for Investigative Reporting, ICIR Ijoma Opera, for joining us, and also Malam Abashir Abubakar, Director with the FCT Universal Basic Education Board.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Public Conscience has the support of John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, committed to building a more just, verdant, and peaceful world. Get more information about the foundation on its website, macfound.org.
Join us again here next week for another episode of Public Conscience, and remember to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram at Official Primog. I am Esther Bassi.
Remember that birth registration and birth certificate are both free if your child is under 18. Help stop the corruption in birth registration, and do not pay for birth certificate. Also remember that you can give us information on or hint about corrupt acts through our phone at 09022656167 or info@primog.org. Many thanks for staying with us today. I am Chidozie Ogunleye. Stay safe.